Hello, buddies. Welcome to episode number 51 of myViewoNBooks. You're watching Medley with Maria Mandrosin, and today's episode we're going to talk about Carl Sagan's The Demon Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark. It's basically non-fiction, and I usually have this habit of reading a science book every year. And this year I was having a hard time, and literally this book was on my bookshelf. I had made sure that I see the cover page, okay? So I was looking at the cover page for months and months, and I was not picking it up. I mean, for me to read nonfiction, it takes a lot of effort and time. So I was like putting it off, but then at certain point I picked it up. So, and as the name suggests, it is truly a candle in the dark. So I was having my own hard time, and I started reading during those time, and this book gave me quite a bit of skeptical thinking, confidence to navigate this world. And yeah, this is basically a science book written by Carl Sagan in the 1990s. So not many of you would know Carl Sagan. Even I didn't know who he was until I watched a YouTube video when he was explaining fourth dimension. The way his eloquence is put into practice while he's explaining scientific concepts is truly fascinating. I think he's one of those fascinating scientists. And after watching this video of Carl Sagan explaining about fourth dimension, I started to explore more about him. Like, then I came to know that he's a scientist, and he's the one who started the Cosmos series. Before Neil deGrasse Tyson, he was the one who made the Cosmos series. And I haven't watched the entire seasons of Cosmos series, but Cosmos is a very good series. It's one of those all-time great TV series. It explains about basically the existence of this universe, galaxy, space, Earth. So a lot of astrophysics there. And I was happy to discover Carl Sagan, and I started reading more about him, and I started purchasing books. So this was one of the earliest books that I purchased like a year back, and I happened to read this year. So this book is entirely the mind of Carl Sagan, his thought process. What does he think, and how does he navigate the world, and what he thinks of certain stereotypes. So he basically debunks, or first elaborates and then debunks, okay, with his scientific approach. So there are a lot of common beliefs, myths, and people tend to believe a lot of things without even going to the underlying truth or evidence. And in this age of digital social media, it's so common. Something goes viral and people don't think about whether it's real or fake. They just contribute the virality, the trending sensation, and they tend to believe whatever is trending. So that's the kind of age we live in. So even then, in the 1990s and the centuries before, we had such tendencies. So not just the digital age. So even in those medieval ages, we tend to have the same weakness as humans. So he kind of breaks down the beliefs or the conspiracies that has been formed, and then came to light that it was nothing. So there are like 25 chapters he has written along with another scientist. Like, there are 4 chapters which has been written along with another scientist, and Druyan, yeah, and the rest 24, I think 21 chapters is by him. So I'll just read you the title of those chapters. You just see how crazy it is, okay? First chapter, The Most Precious Thing, and Science and Hope, The Man in the Moon and the Face of Mars. So I think when I was in my college, there was this conspiracy that there was phase on the Mars, and allegedly there has been a civilization in Mars, and that's the structural remains that we see from here, which looks like a man's face. So it's kind of like was fascinating when I came across this topic, because in my time also I had come across such conspiracies. And then aliens, he talks about aliens, spoofing and secrecy, hallucinations, demon haunted world. So literally he's talking about demons, how demons, the myth about demons and the belief about demons came into picture, and on the distinction between true and false visions, Therapy, The Dragon in My Garage, The City of Grief, The Fine Art of Balloony Detection, and Obsessed with Reality, Anti-Science, Newton's Leap, When Scientists know Sin, The Marriage of Skepticism and Wonder. Okay, that's two distinct or the far end of the spectrum getting married. The Wind Makes Dust, No Such Thing as a Dumb Question, and House on Fire, The Path to Freedom, Significance Junkies, Maxwell and the Nerds, Science and Witchcraft, Real Patriots Ask Questions. So these are the 25 chapters, and as you have listened, these are some crazy titles for chapters. And so the first chapter starts off like, he's getting down from airplane, and there's a guy holding his name, and then he's going to meet a group of people who's related to science and then TV broadcast companies. So they're going to have a conference on how do you make the promotion of science better in commercial broadcasts. So basically in TV, like those times, TV was an upcoming trend, right? So television was invented and everybody was having a television. So it was becoming predominant. So how now we have this Apple watches and then rings are coming into picture. So it was that kind of era where the television was the major thing, and it has become a household member in all those families, middle class or high class. So how do you promote science in TV products? So this is the topic he is going to attend, and he's on the taxi, and the driver who's come to pick him up is asking him, so you're the scientist guy, right? So he kind of asks the common questions like let me read it out. So it's very funny straight from page one. He's gonna ask about frozen extraterrestrials languishing in an air force base near San Antonio. So those eras were filled with high conspiracies, about alien abductions, and like the US government captured an alien and they were experimenting or exploring the anatomy of an alien. So this guy basically asks the most sought after questions from a general public's point of view, and we read Carl Sagan stuff, like he just keeps dismissing everything, and after a point of time, the guy who had come to pick him up loses interest and he wants to hear more fascinating stuff, but in contrast, he hears something that dismisses his fascination. So that's like a prelude or foreshadowing about the entire book. It's like he kind of made sure that the first page is going to be the sum of the entire book, and I loved reading it. So from there on, he tries to break down all the myths, beliefs, conspiracies, and he touches various topics. As I've read it out, he's touched about alien abduction. We have had how commercial it impacted commercially. Like we have seen Steven Spielberg's Extraterrestrial, and a lot of alien movies were inspired by these myths in reality. Like people were believing that aliens had come in UFO and they abducted people. So a lot of people were attending therapy because they believed that they were abducted by aliens, and they were impregnated or sexually violated. So a lot of things were going on, and so he kind of touches almost most of the topics during those epoch. I mean, during those that epoch, and the the topics that were standing out for me were witch hunt. So when he touched about witch hunt, I didn't know. Like I have known that in medieval times, and until the 16th century or 17th century, witch hunt was a thing that was happening. The ladies, women were suspected and they were arrested, so they were sentenced to death because it was believed that they were in possession of demons, or they had magical powers and they were using it wrongly, that is against God or Christianity. So a lot of witch hunt were happening, and a lot of women were affected because of that, and they were not even given the defense, right? So when you're accused of witchcraft, it's almost certain death. So it's going to be it's either going to be soon or later. Okay, there is no escaping from death sentence. So they'll torture you, and they will psychologically and physically a lot of things, and make sure that you confess to this suspicion or just perish. So it's going to be just a matter of soon or later. So he points out that there was lack of science during those times. People did not believe in science. They were spiritually religiously blinded. So if science had taken the upper hand, definitely that would not be the case. So it stopped during the 17th and 18th century, and that's when science came into picture, and people had this unorthodox or beliefs or against religion. So that was one eye-opening chapter for me when reading about witch hunt, and how science could have played. Science had to come later point of time and save it. And he touches politics also, and a lot of topics, as you have heard. Therapy, he's talking about therapy as well, and the demon haunted world. That is one chapter I like, because he talks about demons. So I didn't know that demons or fallen angels. I watched in movies, I guess, but I forgot. So basically, demons or fallen angels. How he talks about incubus, who incubus and incubi, the one who hunts women and the one who hunts male. So a lot of interesting facts, and it is the writing, I would say, it's as fascinating as a novel. So you kind of it's just that there is a story, an arc, or a character missing. So except these elements, you would find this book as good as a novel, thriller novel. So I didn't find any dull moment. It's like 450 pages in length, and I kept on reading. So I didn't feel a lack. In fact, I wanted to give more time to complete reading this book, and I really enjoyed this book. So nonfiction is something I read not regularly, but I mean, over a period of time, like once in 3 months or 2 months, and there are very selective books. So I am into psychology, science, and information. So these are the books in nonfiction I read. So I really loved reading this, and it's like personally knowing Carl Sagan, as well as how you can navigate this world through science. So he talks about skeptical thinking, like, lack of absence of evidence does not mean evidence of absence. So that's a great statement. And there are so many statements. So I would like to quote a couple of his from the book, page number 29. Let me read it out to you. Because science carries us towards an understanding of how the world is rather than how we would wish it to be, its finding may not, in all cases, be immediately comprehensible or satisfying. So let's say you believe in something, okay, and but that is not the case. Like, it is proven to be false, and that breaks your heart, right? So so you want the world to be in certain way, like, I want to succeed, I want to become a huge writer, or famous author. So you have your own set of dreams and own set of beliefs, and you tend to believe that, okay, world is this way. But then science comes into picture, and it methodically puts you the fact. And if there is some suspicion, it kind of experiments, and it tells you the facts with evidence. So that's what he's saying. Science carries us towards an understanding of how the world is rather than how we wish it to be. So that was so hard hitting, man. Reality here. So science tells you how the reality is, not just what you want. So that's why religions and science has been, like a Tom and Jerry, or on the far end of spectrum, trying to not able to kind of agree with each other. And there's one more about science. This was one about where how research shows that many children without enough to eat wind up with diminished capacity to understand and learn. So he's talking about a research that shows that children who has not had enough to eat wind up with diminished capacity to understand and learn. So he kind of breaks it down. When there isn't enough food, the body has to decide how to invest the limited foodstuff available. Okay, survival comes first, growth comes second. So in this nutrition triage, the body seems obliged to rank learning last. Better to be stupid and alive it judges than smart and dead. So when it comes to limited food, or when you don't have enough food, obviously anybody's thought process, or any sane person thinking would be to try to survive and not grow, right? So he's kind of telling explaining the research, right? Why the research has proved or shown this kind of result. Like, growth comes second, and what comes first? Survival. So these kind of facts with evidence, and this UFO sensation is still even a trend, back, I think 10 years back, it was still a sensational topic, and a lot of people reported UFOs. They spotted UFOs, and when YouTube came into picture, I've seen a lot of YouTube videos, and there were a lot of TV series talking about this supposedly alien spacecrafts, unidentified flying objects. So he gives one particular incident, why something could be mistaken for UFO. So the US Air Force had this plan. They would put up balloons. Okay, they were testing some experiment. Okay, so the balloons has the tendency to not the normal balloons, but I'm talking about experimental uh, technical balloons. I would like to go to that page. I forgot the term. So it's basically a military uh, technology. Okay, so when it goes up, there is a tendency that based on the wind, it can go in any direction in quick movement. Okay, so when you're seeing from ground, and when you're looking at a like an object that's far away, you can't make it out as a balloon. Okay, you're gonna identify it as something different. It's going to be weird, it's going to be different, it's going to be suspicious. So there is 99% or high chances that it could be mistaken as an UFO. So he quotes this, like, at that period of time they were experimenting these balloons, and these balloons had the tendency to seem like an unidentified flying object from ground, and people mistook it as an UFO. So this is the kind of breakdown that he does for us. So it's all you read. You're not even watching. Okay, when you read, you kind of imagine, and then you realize the truth. So that's why reading always gives you a better picture or better knowledge than watching a movie or a documentary or a YouTube video. So when you read all this through his words or his mind, right? So this book is basically his entire mind, talking about science and breaking down all these beliefs, misbeliefs. And there was one interesting the what do you say knowledge information. So the word mesmerism came from guy. So basically, there was a guy called Frank Mesmer, and he had this what do you say showmanship, like hypnotize people, and from this man came the word mesmerizing. So that was these kind of factual informations are like spread out throughout the book, and it is truly fascinating. So I think every chapter there'll be no disappointment. It will be only enlightenment. So the 25 chapters are filled with science and information and fun. So he is a very what do you say humorous person. So as I told you, the very first page itself is bursting the bubbles for the driver, right, who is taking him to the broadcast company, where he's going to have a conference with scientists and TV broadcast staff. So it kind of foreshadows the whole book, what's going to happen. And it's so fun to read from his point of view and how he explains stuff. So basically what he advises is it should start from young age. So children has to be educated. So there is a chapter dedicated to he's working he has written for Parade magazine. So Parade is a magazine, not sure whether it still is functioning, but so a lot of letters he used to get, and when he visits schools and colleges, they tend to ask him a lot of stuff or tell him stuff. So he has even put those included those letters and statements from school kids and college kids in his book. So there was a point where in America the students were not intelligent as good as the Asian counterparts. So people are asked to answer that question, and if you see the grammar in them and the geographical knowledge in them, so it's so dumb, right? So he feels very frustrated that especially in commercial broadcast, movies, series, fictionalized content, science is not promoted as it is, or it's not given importance as it is. So he has criticized Star Wars. I think he's touched on this. I think he favors Star Trek than Star Wars. So he says that when you're using science, you have to be accurate, not just create something fictional just for the fantasy or a fantastical element of it. So all those points, and it's really good to read a book written by scientists, and especially when he's talking about skeptical thinking, how we should challenge everything. So the final chapter, the title of the chapter is as good as a good ending. The patriot must ask question. So that's the chapter title. Real patriots ask questions. So you have to ask questions. You have to think. You have to find evidence, and you have to be skeptic, right? So that's how you find the truth, and the truth may not be satisfying or comprehending, but that doesn't mean that it is not the truth. And I really enjoyed reading this, and certainly I would like to read after a couple of years maybe, because it felt so good, man. Like I have read more than a couple of science books. I think I've talked about them as well. 6 easy pieces, and then 6 not so easy pieces, which it is true to its title. I couldn't comprehend anything in 6 not so easy pieces. So those were modern science, right? So modern scientists talking, not Richard Feynman, but if you read books about from Stephen Hawking or Neil deGrasse Tyson, so it's going to be modern science and modern thought process. But Carl Sagan and Richard Feynman, they are like, from the 50s and 70s, 80s. So they had their own epoch, right? There were certain beliefs and like misbeliefs, common conceptions. So a lot of things, and how these scientists navigated during those epoch. And it's literally one, if I have to summarize this entire book, is just what do you say? Reprimanding the whole society that we are not scientifically educated. So education is one thing, scientifically educated or literate is another thing. So people has to know what happened. So the very second page, he's explaining us, he's asking, the driver is asking about a lot of conspiracies and misbeliefs with so much excitement. But did he know about the molecular building blocks of life sitting out there in the cold, tenuous gas between the stars? Had he heard of the footprints of our ancestor found in 4 million old volcanic ash? What about the rising of Himalayans when India went crashing to Asia? Or how viruses built like hypodermic syringes slip their DNA past the host organism defenses and subvert the reproductive mechanisms? So it is getting hardcore science. So yeah, that is something not everyone would be comfortable with, right? So when you get into too much science and the technical terms, obviously people are going to be like, okay, is getting nerdy and it's getting too technical. But basically the point he tries to make is we are not scientifically literate. So there is education and there is scientific education. I think this is one common point I've seen across all the scientists. So when you read Stephen Hawking books, he also ensures that there is at least one chapter or a set of 5 pages where he talks to the readers. Like, you should know what is science. Like, you use a lot of things in your real life, right? So what is the science behind it? So I think I also agree with this. So I have also grown up watching Christopher Nolan movies, and Christopher Nolan tends to be conceptual in his movies using science, and that has been a great inspiration for me, and I have shown that in my filmmaking as well. So I would like to explore science in filmmaking and also in every aspect of my life. So that's the same advice I can give to you. Try to explore science, whether you're school, college, or beyond college, which is real life. I think it's really good to touch base with scientific concepts and skeptical thinking, scientists. So we cannot meet Carl Sagan now, but you can meet him through this book, right? So all the famous scientists who are dead, you cannot meet them, but if you want to get into their minds, then I think definitely purchasing a book that they have written and reading about them is gonna make them come alive, and they're gonna live long forever. So I recommend for people who are interested in science, this is a must read. If you've read about Stephen Hawking, Neil deGrasse, then Carl Sagan, you must read, man. And you have to watch the Cosmos series and a lot of YouTube videos about him. I really love Carl Sagan, and I would like to explore more books that he wrote. And interesting fact, Contact, the Hollywood movie, was a novel written by Carl Sagan, and they kind of adapted to the movie. I think he played a major contribution to it. And I watched the movie, and I want to rewatch it and come and talk about Contact pretty soon, because that's one of my favorite science fiction movies. It's basically speculates if aliens were to contact us, the humanity, how it's going to be. So, in a very believable, what do you say, convincing manner, they would have brought out this concept. Like, if aliens were to contact us, humans, how it would be. So, that's the question. That's the entire story in the movie. So, I watched it, and I like to watch it again and then come and talk about it. But yeah, I could read the book, right? So I will plan to read the Contact novel as well before watching it, and I'll come and talk about it. So I hope you enjoyed it. So I'm not recommending it for everyone, because science is not the, what do you say, cup of coffee for everyone, right? So for people who are interested in non-fiction, and if you want to explore science, and people who are interested in science, definitely read this. So it's not just hardcore science. It is about it talks about history, politics, geography, and then common misconception. As I said, I have explained to you witch hunt, demons, and all those alien abduction therapy, all critical topics that are in the society out there, and how the law system or politics should be framed. Educational system has to be transformed to and then the broadcast, like the commercial broadcast, movie series, and all. Like, now we are getting into the mobile era, right, where everything is in mobile, and it's going to be without screen in like couple of 2 decades, right? So science has to play a major fact, and people have to get into skeptical thinking, rather than believing everything that they see. Gullible, don't be gullible, be skeptical. That's the what do you say, advice I got from this book, and I really loved reading this book. Do purchase it. It's available in any bookstore, I guess. He's a famous scientist, and this is a famous book, New York Times bestseller. So it should be available in any bookstore, and it should be available in Amazon if you are in a city. So do purchase it and read it. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will soon catch up in another video or podcast or live stream. Until then, you're watching Medley with Maddie. I'm Maddie Dawson. Bye bye.